You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
When hurricanes strike, convenience stores are the last to close before the storm and the first to open after the storm. Guess what? Hurricane season's just a couple weeks away. So today we're going to talk about how convenience stores bring the C in C-store to not only mean convenience, but community. Welcome, Convenience Matters, and today joining us to talk about all the ways that convenience stores are community stores as well is Al Herbert, who is the founder of Gas Station Gourmet, loves gas stations, loves convenience stores, loves his community. He's on TV in the morning on KADN. He's the guy, the go-to guy when we want to talk about C-stores and communities. So welcome once again, Al.
Jeff, so glad to be here. And we certainly enjoyed your visit when you and Chrissy came down here. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we visited in February with Stafford Sheridan. We visited a bunch of stores, and we had a nice conversation with Stafford about it. But what I really want to talk about today is hurricane season's a couple weeks away, and obviously that has a big impact on about 1/3 to 1/2 of the population in the country. But disasters happen everywhere, and convenience stores are everywhere. You write a monthly column for NACS Magazine, and the May issue, which is now online, by the way, on our new redesigned website, so check it out there. But a couple people told me, it's like, wow, did you read Al's column this month? It's incredible. Normally, you write as Gas Station Gourmet, you celebrate the joy in food, but this month it was about how food is really life. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the story of what you wrote this month?
Well, it's really interesting. I love the folks at the Bourbon Street Deli, ShopRite, Tobacco Plus. They're NACS members. They're great people. They do such a great job just every day getting out some of the best food you're going to find in Louisiana. They make great food.
And this is in just around the Lafayette, Louisiana area, a little south of there.
Pretty much from the Texas border over here, and they go north, I think, as far as maybe Marksville, which is pretty far north up there. They're a family-owned company and been around for more than half a century. And Lake Charles was hit by Hurricane Laura a few years ago, and I mean, just leveled the town. It looked post-apocalyptic, and some of the ShopRite's Bourbon Street delis were destroyed. They were inoperable. One in particular was just totally unusable. And they decided they were going to go set up a temporary shop in a trailer of like a food truck and start serving the community. And they were doing this without electricity, without running water. And as Angel Cloud told me, just to get there, there were still trees. I'm talking oak trees down on the roads. There were power lines down. A lot of times people think, well, the hurricane's passed, things are fine. But we have giant oak trees down here. And when those things fall, they will block traffic. They'll crush houses and getting around that. And what I thought was just what I loved about this story is how this small group of people who were not behind the counter people. They were sort of management, and they went out there and they started doing what they could, serving food, getting stuff from other places, and truly serving the community the way those of us who are around the C-store world know C-stores do. And when you have a storm like this, Jeff, there's no electricity, sometimes no cell phone, and you just look around and it's sad, and it doesn't even look like your home. It doesn't even look like your city. And so to find this sort of island of civilization there, and they're serving hamburgers and they're serving drinks and they've got ice and they're pulling stuff from other areas in the state. I know exactly how the people felt when they went to this tiny trailer in this parking lot where the store used to be. And there's a great line. Angel Cloud was saying, this lady comes up and found out they had cheese, and she almost cried because she was going to get a cheeseburger. And it's really interesting how when you sort of have nothing, your electricity's off, so everything in your refrigerator is probably spoiled, but a cheeseburger meant everything to her. And the lines were very long, and the work was very hard. But this little group of people, just really worked so hard to serve the people of the Lake Charles community, and they were just dogged. They did a great job, and it's hard to explain how difficult life is in these situations, because sometimes you can't get down the block. And of course, with the Bourbon Street Deli and ShopRite, not only did they have the devastation to the people in the community, but their employees live in the community. So they were dealing with the community, but also dealing with their own family. And, one of the things that happens, some of these workers were very young. They were renting apartments. The apartment buildings were no longer livable. They just took off and went somewhere else. So these people disappeared. And so it was quite a challenge. And I love what they did at Bourbon Street Deli and ShopRite. They just, I know these people. I've written about them before, and man, they just went out there, Jeff, and they just did a very, very hard job. And they were scouring the area for places to shop for the needs for their employees, because the employees who still were around, they probably didn't have soap, and it's a pretty good story, but it's so indicative of what these family-owned C-stores do. They're so connected, Jeff, to the community, and the community gives back to them. Like the people that were out there, they had their director of food services, their marketing director. Hey, look, I was the marketing director. I can tell you how useless we are. And, a couple of other people, and their dietitian was there. And so these are not frontline food workers, but they're out there making hamburgers. And the storm struck in August, and they were out there until November doing this. So it was a long haul. But one of the things, and if you own a C-store out there, you're going to find the value in this. And Jeff, you're going to get it, that them being in that little food truck every day, making hamburgers, sometimes having cheese, this goodwill paid off so well. They built such a rapport with this community. And stop and think. You think these people are not going to be loyal ShopRite Bourbon Street Deli customers forever? Let me tell you something. You have their heart and soul, and sometimes you get it because you got a cheeseburger, and it really it's very, very touching, to see how much the people on this team cared, because man, I tell you what, I hear a lot of stories. No one cares, and you see this and you go, wow. There's just amazingly good people who sacrifice an awful lot, and of course the end of the story is that in January of this year, they started rebuilding the store. There was nothing left. They bulldozed it, and they built this beautiful flagship store, big store, high ceilings, and so there's a big, beautiful, brand new store in this area in Lake Charles that had nothing. And so that's the happy ending of that story. But, Jeff, it's one of those stories that, a few years ago, I wrote about a place called Boochiekees down in Houma. And Houma was devastated by a hurricane. And when I went down there to take the pictures for the story, it was, again, look, post-apocalyptic. And they had cars in line for fuel. They had one station that had fuel. They were the station. Cars are lined up forever. And so people wait in line. And, I see you travel a lot. When people wait in line, they're not always as patient and kind as we would like them to be. And one of the issues they had, the manager of all the stores, the CEO said, man, when you ran out of gas, the people down the line were mad. and they had to carefully manage that. And so they would walk down this long line and just tell people, hey, we're almost out of gas. You might want to go, to keep people from getting in fights at the pumps, because I know it sounds crazy, but that stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's people need help, but sometimes people lose patience, and it can be a crazy, crazy time for a C-store owner, C-store operator, C-store manager. It's one of those things, I think, Jeff, until you experience it, it's very, very difficult to imagine what it's like. Because let me tell you, people want fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think they want food after that. But, that fuel is their way to get out and escape. Because a lot of people will fill up gas cans for their generators, things like that. A lot of these people were filling up gas cans for generators. But a lot of people, when the storm is over, they go, got to get out of here. And so the fuel is their ticket out. So it's really, go ahead.
They also want normalcy.
Right.
And one of the things that when we've talked to various disaster groups that provide aid, whether it's bringing pallets of ice, et cetera, a lot of times they say, well, we'll drop it off at the Walmart because everybody's within X miles of a Walmart, and there are several thousand Walmarts in the country. Well, there's 150,000 convenience stores. And not only are they closer to the customer, they are closer to the customer, but there's a sense of normalcy when everything feels lost, when everything feels in flux, when there's chaos everywhere. You look around and you see activity, stuff that looks normal at the store right down the street from you. It feels pretty good. And that kind of starts the rebuild of the town.
Oh, Jeff, you're dead on that. I mean, think about the lady with the cheeseburger.
Mm-hmm.
It meant everything to her. And, here in the Gulf South, we see this so often, and you almost take it for granted that the C-store is going to be there for you. And I wrote a story about a place called Dolly's Quick Stop in Kiln, Mississippi, where Brett Favre is from. He's from there. And after a hurricane over there, everybody in town goes to Dolly's because everybody wants to see if their family's okay. So everybody knows we're going to converge on Dolly's after this and see who we need to go look for if they're not here. And, this is kind of like, these are the kind of communities that used to exist all over America, but now they exist in C-stores, Jeff. And I got to tell you, it really warms my heart. Sometimes I tear up that these people care so much about their customers, but it also shows you the kind of relationships that people in these C-stores, the people behind the counter, the people in the food service, the people who manage it, the people who work the register, form with their customers. I say this often, that relationship that customers form in a C-store, that may be the only place you can form these relationships in this day and age, because retail's changed so much.
Yeah, and we talked about that in the April issue of NACS Magazine. There's so much angst going on right now.
Oh,
everything.
Gosh, Jeff.
The economy, politics, you name it. And if people know that you care, they're not going to cheat on you. They're not going to go down the street for 5 cents a gallon. You got them as a customer. Everything you just said. And when I grew up in a small town, you left your keys in the door your car. You left your front door unlocked. Times may have changed, but then again, my car was not worth starting up because it first would wake up the neighborhood, and then it'd go about 50 feet, and then there'd be a cloud of smoke, and then it would die. So it was okay to do that. But I saw that when spent some time with you in Stafford, going through some of these small towns, and the idea that you can bring in a deer that you during hunting season, you bring in a deer, and you can leave from that same store with a whole bunch of sausage and meat and things like that. They are not the place to go to get a snack or to get on your way fast. They can be, but they're also the place to have a good conversation and just, it's the general store. So maybe we need to change our name to G Stores.
Jeff, you have something there. You're absolutely right. I mean, some of these places, I did a story about a little store in a town called Crowley, and I went there to take the pictures, and the mayor was there. The police chief was there. The sheriff, everybody who was anybody in this community was hanging out, drinking coffee at the C-store. And you're right. That's the way things used to be. And those kind of places, they exist in our C-stores today. And I find that so neat. And I love, you and I were at the corner grocery in Lauraville, Louisiana. And, they had great food. They had boudin. They had cracklins. They had everything you need for your hair. They had Magnolite pots.
Not an issue for us, though, is it?
Yeah, me either. Yeah, I
Okay.
really don't need much for my hair except a cap.
Yeah.
But, and then they also had live bait. They had worms.
Mhm.
Which you can't just go into any store and find live worms. But they know their community. They know what the community wants, and they have these out of the box things that you wouldn't find in other C-stores. And I think that's wonderful. And you had a chance to meet some of these people. So many are family owned, and I think that makes a big difference when a family owns a C-store. No matter how many stores there are, no matter how many locations. We see that with Why Not Stop. We see that with the Bourbon Street Deli ShopRite stores. That family feeling really trickles down. And if you're doing it right, it's going to trickle down to your employees and the folks behind the store. Jeff, when you come, we got to go to Go Fresh. I found a new store.
Okay.
And I walked in the store thinking, okay, I'm going to check it out. And it's in Youngsville, Louisiana. And there was a young lady behind the counter. I think her name is Kim. And I mean, the moment I walked in the door, she just locked eyes on me, big old smile, and just welcomed me. And I mean, no one knows I write for NACS Magazine. I just walk in, and I got to tell you, that made me feel so at home.
Mhm.
And I was chatting with her about that, and I told her how nice that was. She said, I just love everybody, and those kind of people are in C-stores, and it's amazing. Also, the food was great.
Yeah, always is.
They
So,
had chicken tenders as big as my face.
that's I don't know if that's appetizing.
Yep.
Um,
I have a huge face. It was good though.
I'm glad you mentioned Why Not Stop. When we were down there, we visited them for an Ideas to Go shoot and talked to their co-CEO, Annie Gauthier. And the town had a issue where they had some challenges with water. And, so we're supposed to be filming there. And it was looking dicey because there was a lot of things that she had to deal with. And we said, hey, you know what? We'll leave. We understand things are happening here. And she says, no, give me 5 minutes. Came back and she said, okay, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. I won't give away all the secrets. That she had all this planning down. Everything was calm. Everything was done. And I said, how'd you do that? And she said, we get hurricanes. We know how to do this. And it's the same type of plan that you would have for the hurricane is just execute that crisis plan, fill in the blank. Sometimes it's the local town's turning off the water. Sometimes it's a hurricane. Sometimes it's a tornado. Sometimes it's something else. So as we look at it's hurricane season, but it's always possibly something else season. What are some of the things that in your reporting or your covering of convenience stores that you just see that people do that's good practices to get ready for what you can't predict will happen?
That is a great question. And I think of the odd things that these C-stores stock that you might not see in a C-store on the East Coast or in the Midwest. One of my favorite stories is I went to a place called Sammy's Country Store, which is now Le Marché. And I noticed outside there were all these utility poles stacked outside. And I asked them, I said, what are they for? And they said, well, when a hurricane comes, utility poles fall. The electric company will put the poles back on the road, but they won't put the poles back in your yard. So you go to this convenience store, talk about a general store, and you can buy a utility pole, bring it to your house. If you can get it there, you can get the electricity back at your house from the main line. And I'm thinking that's one of those things that's the only store I've ever seen that in, these big utility poles, which are so essential down here because we were without electricity for 8 days after one hurricane because there were no poles. But I didn't know Sammy's had them, so that's the kind of thing. plumbing. You talked about the water getting turned off. If a big tree falls, there is a chance a big tree, because they're heavy, will break your underground line. Well, you can go to Le Marché and buy PVC pipe, plumbing, things like that. So while some of the big box stores might be closed, that might have all the tools you need, all the PVC you need, the convenience store is going to open up the moment they can, and they're going to have that for you. And sometimes, Jeff, I look at these people and I go, wow, you've thought of everything. They have sledgehammers in this C-store, because after a hurricane, you might need a sledgehammer. You might need a saw to get to your house. I mean, after one hurricane, when you pulled up in front of our house, there were so many trees down, you couldn't even see there were houses here. And that's what you're faced with. And man, I tell you what, I can't say enough good about C-stores. And I think that's why I love writing about them, Jeff, because honestly, they're often, after a hurricane, they're the heroes. They're there. And then, when you look at the story about ShopRite Bourbon Street Deli, these people were not giving up. They just, they were there, and they easily could have gone, well, we'll just wait until we regroup. But they were, and in the meantime, I love this about these family-owned stores. They're so concerned about their employees. They're trying to figure out, well, where are our employees going to live? Not necessarily, hey, I need them at work. You do need them at work, but you got to get a roof over their head, because there could be a tree through their roofs. And I don't know. I just love them. I just really, really love them. And they're such critical parts of our communities, especially in the Gulf South, and every C-store's got a story, like Dolly's in Kiln. Everybody goes to Dolly's after a hurricane. You've got ShopRite. You've got, just so many of them that have everything you could possibly imagine.
I don't know a better way to end this segment than that, so I think we should call that the end. And Al, you have 2 articles in the May issue, or at least 2 pictures. One is the editor's note, where there's a picture talking a little bit about our travels through Louisiana, and of course the column that we're talking about ShopRite. So, and the website's newly redesigned, NACSmagazine.com. It looks great. There's a lot of great stuff there. Al can also be found at GasStationGourmet.com. And I don't know, gourmet is not the easiest word to spell, but you can't do it. That's what Google's for, or autocorrect or something like that. And if you want to follow Al and check out his antics on the morning show, live or tape, KADN-TV, you can either follow him on their website or their app. And there's also some of those segments that Al filmed when we went, I think 8 segments in all, in checking out convenience stores. So I think those are a couple ways to follow you, not to mention you'll be at the NACS show with Stafford.
I will.
And we'll be talking to both of you about road trips and ideas on what you need out there on the road.
Jeff, it's always great talking to you. I had such fun with you when you came down here, and look forward to having you come back and eating food that's not very healthy, but a lot of fun to eat.
Well, it can be healthy, but sometimes it isn't, and it is a lot of fun to eat. So thanks again for joining us today, Al.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, and thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.